Jr.
All right, welcome into the latest edition of the Rewatch reaction with Charlie Goldsmith. Pauliner Jr. here with you. Charlie, how we doing?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Doing good. You know, it's nice. It's nice to be here. This is why when I talk all the time about Sunday at 1, there's just nothing like Sunday at 1. It's because of this moment right here. I had dinner at home last night. I had a normal night of sleep, woke up refreshed, ready to dive into the tape. Didn't have to worry about traveling or prime time or feeling dead from trying to do too much over the course of the weekend or coming back to all the stuff that I didn't have time to do. Today, I feel solid. I've done a good rewatch, and I'm ready to go. I love Sunday at 1.
It's a perfect metaphor, Paul, for where the Bengals are at because, you know, when the season was lost, they were a Sunday at 1 team, but now they're working their way back in it. They're a Saturday at 4:30 team now. Not a primetime spot, but like an interesting game. Let's see what happens. And then if they win that, it might be a Sunday at 8:20 coming up the following week against Pittsburgh. So, but it's a pivot point game. If they lose, then they'll be back on Sunday at 1. So I guess we'll learn some truths about where the Bengals are in the time zone slot.
You watch your dirty mouth. I don't like that one base Sunday at 8:20. You just keep, don't do it, Charlie. Don't do it to me. Okay. I'm fine. I'm fine with everything meaning something. Relevancy is great, but I don't need another primetime game on the road on this slate that's been full of those this year. But we're not talking about that yet. We got one more opportunity to look back. Broncos 4:30 Saturday, a game that still means something. Not a great weekend for the Bengals playoff. Depends on which model you like. I love how different all the playoff probability models are right now for the Bengals. They're all slim. You know, I think I saw the ESPN one was the highest thing I've seen, had it at 14%, but I've seen down as low as in the 3-4% area. So depending on how optimistic you are, you can pick which model you want to look at. The bottom line is a lot of things still need to happen. And if you're a Bengals fan, you are going to be rooting for the Steelers on Christmas. Does that sound like the weirdest sentence ever? It's Christmas, go root for the Steelers because you need them to beat the Chiefs.
So like the Giants, what do they play? The Colts this week. And so it had me looking through the Giants depth chart. And man, I had heard of like 4 of those players. I was a big fan of the Giants defense when they faced the Bengals early this season, but like they're all hurt now. And it is guys that I've never heard of. And then 32-year-olds. So that's where this Bengals, playoff scenarios path has led me down, looking up the depth chart of the worst defense in football.
Yeah. They're right in the middle, needing wins by teams that are potentially tanking for the top overall draft pick. So it's not a great place to be. But there are a couple different things that came out of Sunday's game against the Browns, which we had an awesome live show down at BetMGM Nation Kitchen and Bar. I want to thank everybody again that came out for that. It was so much fun. We're doing another one noon on Saturday, similar type show. We'll have some giveaways. We'll be talking a lot about what's going on in the game, previewing the games. So come on down there, get all your drink specials and everything. Such a great time, and there was a ton of Bengals fans and a ton of good stuff that happened down there. An icky shuffle that included a spin. There were gritty offs. There was some deep Jay's Got Stats trivia that people were all over. We gave away a couple of tickets to the Bengals-Broncos game. So, shout out to everybody that came down there. Come on down noon on Saturday. We'll be there again. But Charlie, I turn to you now. Where'd you start?
Well, I watched every pressure they've allowed since Orlando Brown got hurt. And Paul, I'm not going to lie to you, it's not pretty. If you wanted to do a run, pass, or boot between Bengals 2021 playoffs offensive line, Bengals 2022 playoffs post-injuries offensive line, and the current group they're out there now, you can make the case that this is the worst line that Burrow's played behind since his rookie season. And went through all the pressures week 1 through 8, a line that wasn't even that great, but was fine. 79 pressures allowed since they've allowed 107 pressures in just the last 7 games. I also specified that there are pressures and then there are what I call danger plays. 59 danger plays in the last 7 games. And wow. You got to start with the interior. For all the talk about these edge rushers they've been facing, the fact that they've been playing without Orlando Brown, with a limited Orlando Brown Jr., it's still Kappa having allowed 15 danger plays of the 59, Volson having allowed 10 of the danger plays of the 59, Ford having allowed 10, including, I believe, 3 at guard. In that one game, he did play guard against the Steelers. And then the blitz rules are just thrown way off. You're seeing them really struggle with the blitz, too. So Burrow has actually saved 15 of those 59 danger plays. He's turned into something ridiculous, but it's getting into scary territory, particularly if Mims is in any way limited, or, we'll see if he can't go against the Broncos and a really good defensive line and a guy, Nick Bonito, who isn't quite Myles Garrett, but is right in that next tier coming up this weekend.
Yeah, it looks pretty good for Mims. It sounds like Mims is going to be okay coming off of what happened yesterday from the conversations I've had today. We still don't know with Orlando Brown. He's been really murky in his return the entire time. It's funny because you talk about this line right now being the worst. It previously felt like it was closer to as good at the tackle spot. You had Mims and Brown, Brown playing as good as he played maybe in his career, Mims really coming along, and you felt like the guard play wasn't great, but when you had the tackles so strong, it could be serviceable. On Sunday, what was interesting, Charlie, that I'm sure you saw, Drew Sample basically played left tackle. He was at left tackle all day blocking Myles Garrett. That was where he was stationed. And so when Mims went out, it made it non-functional because you couldn't put help on both sides, and you couldn't help Devin Cochran, who'd been playing left tackle recently and wasn't quite, didn't look as comfortable on the right side at all. He didn't look great on the left side. He looked like a practice squad guy, but he looked even worse on the right side, and that really hurt.
So kind of wild. Like, the offensive line actually was fine-ish, or their plan made them look pretty solid before the Mims injury. I went through all the pressures from Sunday. The first one, Burrow should have had that touchdown on the scramble drill to T. The second pressure the Browns had, they had a chance for a deep ball. The third pressure was just a bad play by Kappa, but it was a play action pass, kind of a weird play. Another pressure was a touchdown. Another pressure turned into a shot play the Bengals took, or turned into the flip play to Drew Sample. All of the pressures the Bengals allowed, basically except one weird play action play with Mims in the game, they kind of had a chance, kind of worked out. When you look at the danger play to Burrow bail you out ratio, it's pretty good. Well, the danger play to Burrow bail you out ratio after Mims left the game was, I guess it wouldn't even be 0. It would be imaginary because, when you divide by 0, that's an imaginary number. So there are some plays that I think show this really well, but you have Cochran on the right side. Man, he is a slow first step. He has some of the weirdest footwork I've ever seen. And I had him circled on 1, 2 of the 6 pressures that turned into bad plays by the Bengals offense in a second half where the Bengals barely even had the ball all together. You had a terrible rep by Cody Ford against Myles Garrett. You had Alex Kappa whiff on a blitz pickup. You had Ted Karras get powered up the middle. And then you had a blitz just kind of break through as well, or 2 blitzes when you include the play action fumble. So the Bengals offensive line, their rules were off. They were losing. They didn't know who to help. They can't help everybody. Everybody without Mims needs help. And we could go into each play. We won't, but each play would show that this offensive line was in a tough math problem, and in some way a bit of a rules mess when you look at how they played in that second half.
Let's pick out one here and just bring this. This is one where you're talking about a blitz that comes up the middle, really a triple A gap almost. I mean, they're bringing everybody in there, but you can see the problems that the Bengals offensive line has, especially from this straightaway view.
Yeah, so obviously it's a blitz, and that'll create its own headaches. It probably should have been a deep ball down the sideline to Yoshivas, who had kind of the angle and the leverage there to do that. So I mentioned Cochran's first step. This play is a perfect example to me of how his first step kind of looks like a gallop and has him off balance and is really slow and doesn't let him change directions. He's going up against an undrafted free agent. Alex Kappa's thinking, I got to help him. I got to help him. I got to help him. We saw that play out with the Mike Dub, Zach Taylor against the Titans, him telling Devin Cochran, I'm going to help you as much as you can. And that mindset and those limitations with Devin Cochran, that showed up on this play, but that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part of this play was Alex Kappa. I think I said this earlier. He's responsible for 15 of the 59 danger plays since week 9. He sees the edge linebacker drop. Cochran takes 92. Alex Kappa scans, and he's got to pick up the farthest outside guy, but you see the lateral quickness. He's just not getting there. He's supposed to be able to read, find your guy, lay that hit. And he just doesn't get there. It kind of reminded me of like Von Bell in space at different points this year. Like, watch here. See him, he needs to get there, and he's just a second late, and that's kind of the athletic profile you're just not seeing from Kappa this year. You're seeing that show up with the lack of power as well. They just need that from their guards. Volson and Ford, they look ready to double team Myles Garrett like they did all game. He throws off their rules completely by dropping into coverage on Jamar Chase. What an idea there by Jim Schwartz. Ford still loses to Mike Hall around the edge, and then the blitz too. We should cap it off here. The importance of the blitz. 10 of the 59 danger plays were on blitzes. Burrow is 24th in completion percentage in the NFL against the blitz and 18th in EPA per dropback. Burrow is getting blitzed at the third lowest rate in the league, but when they're blitzing, they're getting home very, very, very quickly, the stats show, and Burrow is struggling much more than he usually does when teams throw blitzes at him.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see what's happening right there. But, I mean, and then the fact that you're talking about all of this pressure, so many things that are going wrong with the offensive line, but yet this has been one of the most incredible runs of offense that the Bengals have gone on since Burrow has been here. I mean, you're talking about the records for 250 plus passing yards and 3 touchdowns per game for Burrow during this span that you're talking about. They're scoring, they've scored at least 24 points in every single game. And all of this is happening while the line is falling apart, which I do think exemplifies just the level of Burrow and Chase and and Chase Brown, how everyone else, the skill players are finding a way to overcome that, with Burrow being the obvious and the ability for him to offset all those danger plays. And we're seeing it now, whether it's the no look to Drew Sample, whether it's the Superman touchdown, whether it's the jump pass that we've seen. I mean, we've seen his off-platform game is off the charts at this point, and it has made such a big difference.
But I'll wrap up here. Like, they need Mims to not just be there. They need Mims to be playing like the way he had. Mims not letting guys around him on the outside in one-on-one blocks was the one thing this offensive line could count on. That was it. And if you don't have that because he's limited in any capacity and is at 95% instead of 100, I mean, that's where I think you see the chips start to break through. And to me, that's what that second half represented, which was, when you don't have that, well, that is the straw that broke the camel's back. Burrow, we couldn't say any more about how impressive he's been, the way he's creating these plays that are miracles. But eventually it does become too much to handle. That Broncos defense has a really good defensive line. And that's what has me nervous about that game. The chips that you saw against the Titans, the chips you saw against the Browns, the fumbles you're seeing pick up due to pressures. Like, this offensive line is going to have to play its face off against a great Denver line. And they need the game of the season from Amarius Mims. And that's setting the stage for a really fascinating matchup this week.
No doubt will be that. Now, you did some bad things on offense. I want to talk about some good things on defense. I will start this with a disclaimer that we have to start everything with the last 3 weeks, Charlie, as we've done these. All right. DTR disclaimer here. I get it. Browns maybe not even trying to win. Offensively, they're a mess with DTR back there. I tracked some of the plays. I looked at all the sacks that they had and the run stuffs, okay? And threw in the interceptions on top of that. And where are they coming from? Who gets the credit? How many of these young players are doing some things that maybe they weren't doing earlier? And when I went through the 5 sacks, I did half credit DTR on a couple of them. I mean, just unable to make a decision, right? And leaving time where most quarterbacks that are processing and moving out or getting rid of the ball or knowing what to do are not going to take these sacks. And that included the second one from Kris Jenkins and the McKinley Jackson sack. Those guys get credit for getting pressure and being disruptive, but DTR's just inability to either get rid of the ball or make a move out of the pocket. It deserves half credit there, an assist, if you will, for them. And there's some of that, but some of that's not the case.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to highlight one right off the top. And this is a rookie understanding what the other team is trying to do to you. It's a play action, rollout, standard stuff from the Browns. I'm going to pull it up here. And watch Kris Jenkins 90 lined up over the nose here. He plays the run. He spins off of it, okay? And this is against Wyatt Teller and comes down with the sack. a great play of understanding his assignment, understanding what the offense is trying to do mid-play, and then having the athleticism to make a play. It's a play action. He spins right off of it after creating pressure against the run. He technically stops both things. If it would have been a run, Jenkins was there to blow up the run. And kudos to him for then going and spinning around the other way and tracking down DTR for a sack, and then being able to do his little celebratory crawl on the ground thing that he said he got some criticism for after the game. I think it's pretty good. I like the crawl.
Well, he almost got called off sides because he was still celebrating.
This is true. That's all right. That's all right. But I think this is a sign of a player figuring it out, knowing what he's supposed to do, and then being able to kind of just instinctually react and pull off a play that looks like that. I thought you saw a couple of Jenkins had 2 sacks in this game. Those weren't the only plays where you saw him where he was active. I thought it was certainly one of his best games, and they need that so much, but that's kind of when the light starts to come on with rookies is when you start to see them being able to play instinctually because they know what's happening in front of them, and that's a great example of it.
Yeah, I saw the light go on for Jenkins in the Steelers game before he left with that minor injury or whatever that was. I think he came back. But what you saw there, the trait that stands out to me the most from that clip you showed is the trait that, I've really noticed since that game, his pursuit. Like when he sees the ball, he gets there. And that shows, the closing speed, that shows the tackling consistency. He just is a good finisher of plays. And he's a guy, what's Burrow's line? Finding cornerstones. I don't think Jenkins is going to be a long-term borderline Pro Bowler for the Bengals, but I think Kris Jenkins is establishing himself as one of those guys who you can write in pen, in Sharpie, as a guy with a role on that depth chart in 2024. You're seeing the versatility show up against the run, against the pass yesterday. Kris Jenkins is a guy who's definitely gotten better with each week.
You're looking for him to be BJ Hill's career.
Sure.
Right? I mean, I think that's it's great to have BJ as a leader in that room. I think when you talk about, there is nothing wrong with BJ Hill's career, that you need those guys. They don't have anything close to enough of those guys. And so if that's where I don't know, like it does feel like there's probably maybe a ceiling, but it's also young. It's also early. He's still a young player. So there's time for him to develop into more, but I think if you're looking at comps of what it can look like, I think it's a good one that you already have in the building that you can look at there. Were there any, I have another one, but is there anybody else on the defensive line you wanted to highlight before I move to the secondary?
Man, Joseph Ossai is having a nice season. And it flashed me back to the draft stuff too. Like, what did we talk about when he got drafted? Hustle, right? That was the term. Well, you have him hustling and chasing down a screen on that first drive. You have him stopping a quarterback draw on his own. He had a sack late in the game where he basically grabbed the back of DTR's jersey and brought him to the ground. Forcing throwaways, making plays against the run. I just couldn't be more impressed with the overall season he's had. Definitely a guy I'd like to bring back next year for the same role that he's in now. Again, the hustle and the effort and what do they say? The relentlessness, all of those intangible traits you're seeing merge with the guy who knows how to get to the quarterback and knows how to finish plays. And, kind of that next step from Myles Murphy is doing these things to create that separation on plays that we're seeing Joseph Ossai figure out right now. And definitely just to reiterate one more time, a very strong game from Kris Jenkins yesterday.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And a second straight week where McKinley Jackson does show up, I think, and that's for a guy that plays his position and is just a big body, don't get moved in the run game type. Showing up once a game is great. That's awesome if you get that from that position, and you've now a couple weeks in a row you've gotten that as he gets a sack where he powers his way back. That's the half DTR though, where McKinley's on the ground diving at his legs, and DTR has no awareness that maybe I shouldn't let this guy who's on the ground right next to me just grab my legs and take me down. But still, that doesn't take away the effort. And these are 2 good guards. So you had a lot of this play happen. You say what you want to about the Browns. Joel Petonio and Wyatt Teller are 2 of the best in the league. And so you get a lot of, this is not a played against the Browns asterisk when we start talking about what you're getting from those guys specifically. I want to move to the secondary real quick before we wrap this all the way up. I want to talk about Jordan Battle. So we've seen Battle really over the last 4 weeks
Mhm.
totally take over Von Bell's snaps, which it's really interesting because before Battle was essentially relegated to passing situations. I mean, he was not really in there a whole lot in your standard foundational run game. They were just letting Von do that so it would accentuate more of his strengths. But really what it did was take away Jordan Battle's strengths, I think. I think Jordan Battle's strength is in playing the run and anticipating the run, and you're really seeing that in recent weeks. The last 2 weeks, he's got 15 tackles and 6 stops, solo tackles for offensive failure. 6 stops. Previously in the season, he had 21 tackles and 6 stops. Okay. And that's because they're giving him more opportunities to do what I think he does best. Let me pull out one example here for you and add this one in. So you watch him in the middle. He sees it, he reads it, and he's on it. This is a run to the left where it's kind of a little zone read action and a big celebration, of course, because he's also known for that. But you get he's all the way back there, but he's already moving towards it. Right as the play starts, he takes a couple of steps in and he ends up getting this tackle for loss, and he ends up blowing by the linebacker. I mean, Akeem Davis-Gaither is right there. You'd think if he was seeing some of the same stuff, he would get there. But no, Battle beats him to the spot from all the way back there. And granted, ADG has to take on a linebacker, but that's the type of anticipation and aggressiveness at the point of attack that you want to see from that position. And I feel like he's really shown that as they've kind of given him more opportunity to. That's just something that when they were trying to kind of give Von what they wanted to give Von and keep him involved, whether that was trust issues with Jordan or whatever that was, it was taking away some of Jordan's strengths, and you're seeing that in the last couple of weeks here against the Browns and the Titans.
You're seeing a weakness turn into a strength. What was Jordan's weakness? Jordan's weakness was the instincts and the timing on how he bid or sold out on play action, when to trigger in versus the run, when to stay back in deep cover, like all of that. Like vertical range safety stuff. That was the weakness in his game. Think the Devontae Smith touchdown where they put him in because Von Bell was playing terribly, and then he allows that touchdown, and then they pull him right out after. Jordan Battle was literally unplayable earlier this year. Like they tried him out against the Ravens in week 5 or whatever that was. They put him in for 3 plays. He allows 3 plays. They bench him. They put him in. Against the Eagles. He allows that Devontae Smith touchdown. They bench him. I'm sure they would have been interested in reducing Von Bell's snap count much earlier this season. But what you're seeing now is Jordan Battle really earned the snaps he's been given by making just a really diverse group of plays. Like, I think it's really important to stress too what you said earlier. It wasn't just this game. This was clearly his best game. It's been a month to 6 weeks of really nice moments, starting with that PBU against Brock Bowers. He was the one who set up Cam Taylor-Britt's pick Cam Taylor-Britt tipped to Geno Stone pick against the Cowboys with the way he kind of sealed off that guy on that slant flat concept. You saw him stonewall the Titans running backs twice. And then he got targeted 5 times on Sunday. He allowed 1 catch. The series that, we could pick out 4 or 5 plays from that ended with his pick. I called that the series of his career. And instead of taking a minute to talk about those plays, I want to talk about what I was seeing just at the game. Jordan Battle had this confidence to him, this earned between plays. He was hyping up the crowd. He was going over to the linebackers. He was saying stuff. He was involved in every single second, whether, the ball was in play or the ball wasn't in play. You saw Jordan Battle look and carry himself like a guy who is a starting safety, who is a vocal presence and member of the defense. And then obviously he ends that drive with a pick. And just again, some 3 really impressive plays from him on that series too. He's a guy, again, cornerstone, I don't know, but he's a guy who I think will be a starting safety for the Bengals in 2025.
2 things. One, really, really enjoyed during the rewatch Lou Anarumo coming into the picture after the interception, screaming for Jordan Battle to go down.
Got to work on that.
Yeah, getting I was interviewing Jordan after the game, and Lou comes up behind me, and he just goes, Jordan was definitely going to take a knee in the end zone the whole time, I promise you. But Lou obviously did not believe that if you watch the film, as he is jumping up and down, trying to scream at him to go down, which he did end up doing. Secondly, can I give you an impression of my debrief when the year ends with Jordan Battle, if I am Lou Anarumo or Zach Taylor or whoever's sitting down in front of him? Jordan, if you take this offseason seriously and you try to be a guy and you show up at every OTA and you take care of yourself and you show up ready to be the best safety in the league at the beginning of next year, you can be an absolute cornerstone that will make $10+ million a year in this league for this team. You have the ability to do that. You have shown the ability to do that if you take this thing seriously. He's been kind of a young, immature guy to this point. Take it seriously. Show up with the confidence, with the intensity, with the willingness to be a leader that he has over this last few weeks stretch. If you do this in the way you carry yourself in the offseason, the way you show up in camp, and the way you start next season from week 1, you will be an unquestioned starter. You can be Von Bell. He can. When the Bengals brought in Von Bell from New Orleans as a free agent, Jordan Battle could be that at the beginning of next year if he takes it seriously and tries to develop into that leader. We talked about when he was drafted about his football intelligence in the Red Star and the best interview they've had ever, in that meeting and that was much hyped. But the other side of it has been there's been an immaturity and an unwillingness to take it all the way seriously that has cost him really the 3/4 of this season and the ability to even get in there and show some of his strengths and develop. And so if he can do that, I think he can be an answer. And we talked a lot about these last 5 weeks being about finding some actual answers amongst the young players. I think he's showing that he can be an answer. I don't know if he is in this particular moment. I think we'll know, though, when they show up at camp and we get midway through camp next year and you see what he looks like. I think at that point, then we can make a little bit better of a judgment on Jordan Battle. I think that's the only part that really needs to take a bigger step in his game. And you could say, hey, there's a guy. Here's the next Von Bell.
You hit the nail on the head. You really hit the nail on the head. Because I'm going through the plays he's made this year. He's kind of making every single type of play instead of, he almost made the one play I'm saying he hasn't made, because I was going to say he hasn't had a nice range instincts, free safety style pick in coverage this season. Well, actually, the 4th and 16, the final play of the game, Akeem Davis-Gaither dives in front of Jordan Battle and takes away what would have been Battle baiting DTR into making a throw to a guy he thought was open, kind of like a Geno Stone against the Bengals on the goal line pick last year. Battle nearly closed out the game with that play. So he's showing he can make every type of play. That's a great point. And I agree with that. It is about kind of the whole package there. I wrote a newsletter a few weeks back. Who are going to be the captains of the 2025 Bengals defense? Sam Hubbard. We'll have, I'm going through the captains now. We'll have that conversation about Sam Hubbard. Jermaine Pratt. I think we can have a conversation about Jermaine Pratt. Von Bell probably gone. Mike Hilton probably gone. Cam Taylor-Britt's season has kind of been all over the place. Will Geno Stone be back? All right, maybe you got Logan Wilson there as a captain. They're dying for someone to step up as someone who even is just going to lead the defense in OTAs next season from that perspective. And well, I think they'll bring in some guys to kind of assist with that. I'm calling them Josh Bynes style free agents that I think they'll add next year. Battle probably has the best case right now of a young guy stepping into that role. And one thing I'll stress one more time, just the demeanor he was carrying himself with on that big series that ended with the pick. That was exactly what you wanted to see from Jordan Battle.
Yeah. And he's starting to find that a little bit. We have plenty of time we'll be going through some of these decisions, things in front of them. And make sure you guys, by the way, are subscribing and reading Charlie's Chalkboard, the newsletter that he's got going on. Of course, you're probably still following him on Twitter. I know you're doing that. Charlie G with 2 underscores, which I'm still critical of. Yeah, I'm still critical of, but that's okay. We still love it. Make sure you're following that and reading that, because it's awesome stuff like you're hearing from him here now every single week. So, all right, Charlie, this was good stuff. Did you have one random play, something that was fun? Do you have anything else you want to throw in, or did we cover it all?
It is a little mean, but can we get 11 guys on the field for the opening kickoff instead of 12 guys like the Bengals did yesterday? They pulled Cam Grandy at the last possible second, but that is a challenge to Darren for next week. Let's get 11 on the field on Sunday or on Saturday.
You can do it for the first kickoff.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a good place to start. I like that. All right, Charlie, this was awesome. Great time as always. Make sure you're checking out Charlie on Twitter and reading his newsletter for all the great Bengals coverage. And we'll be back again next week coming off Bengals v. Broncos. For everybody that we just talked about and all these things we just talked about, you can take the asterisk off a little bit next week and get a really good view. I think this is going to be a great litmus test. The Bengals might not make the playoffs. The odds are obviously very far against that happening this year, but this is going to be a great litmus test game to really learn about some of these players in terms of what they're building around for 2025 and what they can trust for 2025 by how these guys play on Saturday, which makes it even more fun than it already was going to be. All right, Charlie, appreciate it, buddy. We'll talk to you next week.
See you.